James, welcome to Talk Dirty to Me. Um, how are you
Well,
today?
I'm great. I'm good. Thanks for asking me. This is great.
Yeah. Now you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, like who you are, what you've done.
Well, yeah, I started dancing when I was 8 years old, and I'm now several years older than that. And but I've been dancing my entire life from 8 years old. I started in Idaho. My mom and dad and my brother and I lived in a logging camp. My dad was a logger, and we're about 2.5 hours outside of Boise, Idaho. And my mother happened to love movie musicals, so she was always taking us down to Boise to the Egyptian Theater, the only theater in Boise, Idaho, and still there, to see movie musicals. And the second movie musical I saw was Gene Kelly in American in Paris. And my mom, when we came out of the theater, my mom said I tried to dance down the street, and I had no dance training or anything. And so she thought I might like dance lessons. So she enrolled me in the class in the only dance school in Boise, the Lillian Winger School of Dance, and I started dance training then. But the interesting about it is that my dad, we all lived in a logging camp.
Right.
So in order to have dance lessons, my mom would drive me down to Boise, 2.5 hours out of the logging camp, to Boise on Friday night. I would have dance lessons all day Saturday and all day Sunday, and then she would drive me back to the logging camp. And in order for me to practice, my dad and my granddad brought two logs into the trailer area, nailed some planks across, and that was my rehearsal floor under the trees in the logging camp. So it's
Wow.
a pretty cool beginning.
Yes, definitely. It's a really, really cool beginning. And where did you go from there?
Well, I took tap, jazz, and acrobatics at the school, and I did the usual thing that young dancers do. You have recitals, and you dance anywhere around the town. I danced in a lot of hospitals, and when I was 14, my teachers came to my mom and dad and said, "He's learning so fast. You have to take him to either New York or L.A. to further his training." And so my dad didn't want to do this, but my mother made it happen, and we went down to LA for 1 month, 1 month of dance training. If I My dad said, if you're not a star, at the end of 1 month, you're coming home, you're going to be a logger, and you work in construction just like me. So it wasn't too much pressure, but I went
That's
there
really
and
cool.
I
So you're just
started dance training. My first, eh,
I was saying, so you're just a
what?
natural dancer.
I think it was born in me.
Yes.
I wanted to dance from the moment I saw it, and I haven't stopped. I couldn't wait to get home from school to practice, and I just couldn't wait. So dancing was the thing that made me breathe and made me happy, and it's been that way uh, forever. I still
Yeah.
feel the same way. I'm still dancing. I'm still
Right. I was
teaching.
gonna say I've seen videos. Definitely seen videos.
So
Oh, yeah.
did you ever put on a show for your parents at all for to show off your skills?
Like what happens in homes is like, Jimmy, get up and dance. We had parties and stuff, and also my dad had me dance at his conventions, for the company that he worked for, and I did an awful lot of that, of course.
So basically, he did accept your dream and support you.
Well, yeah, but my dad just didn't understand it, but my mother did, and uh, I mean, eventually my father, as soon as I had my first professional job,
Mhm.
then my dad realized that there's some value to it. And it's because from that first job when I was 14, I started to work, and I just haven't stopped working.
Definitely a good life. So moving on in life, you actually got to dance with some really cool people, or for some really cool people in movies and stuff.
Yeah, I've had yeah, great fortune, and I've danced in now I mean 29 movies. A lot of them major movies like Hello Dolly and Gypsy and Bye Bye Birdie and Thoroughly Modern Millie and six films with Elvis and Marys on the Rocks with Frank Sinatra and lots more, and also a lot of them in Canada since I moved here as well. So and also I've danced on scores of in musical comedies on stage and over I gosh maybe 250 to 300 TV episodes shows, and I worked in nightclubs in Las Vegas and Reno and Lake Tahoe, and yeah, no, it's and I directed and choreographed,
Wow.
acted, sang, and danced, and did as much as I possibly could all the way along.
Man,
That's Go ahead, Alex.
no, I'm just amazed by the amount of progress you made over the years and how many films and other things you've been involved with. It must be a great blessing for you to actually have had done all that, and still doing it today.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of my colleagues, they're not dancing anymore,
Mhm.
and they're not even in the business. They either they have they lose interest in it, or they have interest in something else, or they have knee problems or hip problems and that kind of thing. But I've been blessed with a body that's has survived all this, because a lot of even with just tap dancing alone, you pound on your feet,
Mhm.
and it's so I've been blessed, and I can still dance, and I have a couple of friends in LA that are still doing it. One friend is his name is Walter Painter. We did like I don't know 25, 30 different jobs together. He's one of my good friends. He's still teaching dancing, and he's been a director and a choreographer as well.
Wow.
And one of my other friends, Pete Menifee, I did like all that work with Anne Margaret, films with Anne Margaret, and the Elvis movies. Pete gave up dancing when he was in, I think, around 71, and he became a costume designer. And he's won like 5 Emmys
Oh my.
for his costume design. I mean, there's been all my chums down there who have been really super successful. It's just well, it's wonderful,
It definitely is.
honestly.
It definitely is.
Mhm.
So, um,
It's a blessing.
Yes,
I've
it
been
is.
blessed my entire life.
Oh yeah.
right, definitely. You've obviously done a lot of shows with celebrities and stuff. What celebrity stands out to you the most?
Oh, oh gosh. Okay. I'll start this off by saying people have asked me what's your the favorite job you ever did, your favorite show you did, and it's just everything I ever did is my favorite show. No matter whether it's a big show or a small show, you still give the same performance, you still committed the same way,
Yep.
and you're always performing well, literally for the audience, right? And but I've worked with you. Let's start with my first show. It was Gypsy. My first movie was Gypsy with Natalie Wood and Carl Malden and Rosalind Russell, and Rosalind Russell was outstanding. And I've got a couple of tidbit stories uh, involving Natalie Wood. I fell flat in love with her, which is not a difficult thing to do. And but then I went into, and then I did Bye Bye Birdie, and Anne Margaret was the star. And I still love Anne Margaret from the bottom of my heart. She's one of the kindest, most honest, down to earth women I've met in the business. And she was great to work with. And I've worked with, oh gosh, Frank Sinatra. I've worked with Dean Martin. I've worked with Rosalind Russell, that I mentioned. There's Mary Tyler Moore, Julie Andrews, Mickey Rooney, Frankie Avalon. Gosh. I mean, there's been so many that oh, Tom Jones. I did a television series we shot up here in Canada for
Right.
Tom Jones, and I had four girl dancers on that show that were beautiful, and that was a thrill and a half. I got to work with Dionne Warwick, and it goes on. All the '60s rock and roll singers were on a TV series that I choreographed for Dick Clark called Where the Action Is. And I mean, everybody was on that show. James Brown, everyone. And Sonny and Cher. And funny enough, where I lived in Los Angeles was in West Hollywood on Sweetser Avenue. And Sweetser Avenue connected with Santa Monica. And right on that corner was a market called the Aerial Market. And regular people that we saw in the Aerial Market were Sonny and Cher and all the people that I was working with on Where the Action Is. So it's been crazy. And and after coming to Canada, and I did so much work here, mostly in the early years, in stage and television. But recently, in the last 7 years, all the movies started coming up here as well. And Kenny Ortega brought a whole bunch of work. A friend of mine, Paul Becker, was a choreographer. Anyway, I say Paul Becker because I worked with him as a dancer in one show, and now he's a very big choreographer and quite in demand. Well, I credit him to the one solely responsible for bringing me back into show business in the movies, and I got to do. And then I was introduced to Kenny Ortega, and I did 2 movies for Kenny Ortega and 2 TV series, and I worked with Mandy Moore on the Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, and I've done The Last of Us and Grease the Rise of the Pink Ladies and all these shows. And I'm literally dancing with babies because I'm the oldest guy there and I'm dancing with them. So it's a real treat, you know.
It's
I'm
definitely
yanking
awesome.
off the motion.
No, it's definitely awesome. It's great. Now you were telling us some stuff before we went live about you hanging out with Elvis and stuff like that, and it's probably stuff that nobody really knows when thinking about it. You want to share some of that right now, like your time with Elvis?
Yeah, of course. My experience with Elvis Presley is one of the highlights of my life. I danced and sang in 5 of his movies, and I danced and sang and choreographed the 6th movie. And but I was telling you guys earlier, the around the 3rd movie, I think it was called Girl Happy or one of those. He overheard me talking on a break about where I grew up in the woods in Idaho, and hunting and fishing. And I was telling hunting and fishing stories because guys were asking. And he overheard me, and he invited me to come on the next break to come and sit with him at his trailer and just have a conversation. And that started a regular conversation with Elvis every movie from that point on at his trailer. And all he wanted really to talk about, he didn't want to talk about show business, I'll put it that way. He wanted to talk about when times were simpler and for him as well, and growing up. And he told me a lot of stories about growing up. He talked a lot about his mom and his brother that he never, of course, was able to meet. But his mother told him a lot. And he was so polite and so kind and generous and respectful. It was almost shocking because it would put you back on your heels because he was such a kind person. And we would talk, and he would then the assistant director would come and say, Elvis or Mr. Presley, we're ready for the next shot. And he would every time he would turn to me and say that, Jimmy, have we what we were talking about? Do you have anything else to say? That's why I said, well, I think of course we should go back, you know. And by the time we'd walk back to the set, and by the time he got there, he was his persona, his star persona again, and continued with his job. And he was always prepared, never forgot his lines, and he was absolute professional. And at the end of the last movie, which was Easy Come, Easy Go, I co-choreographed a production number because the choreographer had to go to another job. The choreographer was David Winters, who had choreographed several of his movies. And David had to go to another job contractually, and he had me choreograph the number. Afterwards, we finished principal filming. Elvis and Joe Esposito, his road manager, invited me to come to NBC. I think it was NBC, and watch his comeback special, which was extraordinary. And I was about 5 feet behind the avalanche of girls that were around the stage, and he and Joe Esposito came to me afterwards and said, Joe and Elvis said, "I'm going to miss our chats, Jimmy," and he wished me well, and it was just a thrill and a half the entire time. And I felt, for a short period of time, we were friends, and I never saw him after that, but he was a genuine, really a wonderful guy.
That's really cool. So he was like more down to earth than any of us would think. You'd think he's a show business guy, but down to earth.
Yeah, and I found that a lot with a lot of the big stars that I've worked with.
Right.
They know they're talented. They have no axe to grind, and they would like to have a conversation. I mean, working with Tom Jones, he liked smoking cigars and drinking champagne and telling jokes. It was just so relaxed and not crazy. It's crazy enough for the rest of the time for them, right?
Right.
But and Natalie Wood too, and Rosalind Russell was one of the kindest people. One of my favorite people was I did several shows with Lucille Ball, and on her show Here's Lucy, and towards the end of her career, and oh, I got a wonderful story about Lucille Ball
That's so
if you
cool.
have time. But
I I
my
got time.
I'm taking my wife and my daughter. We're going to go to a place like, I don't know, Costco, some shopping center, and we're driving on Santa Monica out, and right at the corner there's Desert Studios, and there's a red light, and I stop at the red light, and we're going to go on, and a Rolls Royce pulls up on the left hand side, and then I see a window come down, and a hand waving through the window, and so we look over, and it's Lucy, it's Lucille Ball, and she's driving her mom to Desert Studios, and we had a conversation. He was asking how I was, and I was fine, what I was doing, what she was doing, and it was she always kind of took a motherly, you know, care towards me, even on the set. He was sort of looking out after me,
Right.
and the light turns green, and we're talking, and people start to honk behind us, and I said, "Oh, geez, Lucy, I think we better go." And she says, "Don't worry, I own the street." And, then we finished the conversation, and the light turned red again, then turned green, and we waved goodbye, and off she went, and off we went. That's what she was like to me.
That's so awesome. It's funny because my kids to this day watch I Love Lucy. My kids love it. So it's
Yeah.
never gonna fade away.
No,
She said,
no, absolutely.
right.
It's always funny.
Yep.
She's very funny, but she controlled that studio and that show. And when we would meet in the morning along a long, low table, the directors on one side, the choreographer, and all the dancers, everybody was gathered. And here she would come, and she sat at the high director's chair. She opened the book and she said, "Okay, we're doing this shot now. We're going to do that shot there." And she controlled the entire thing. And she gave me a little going away gift after every show. I did about 8 shows on her series. And the one show I remember, I worked with Mel Torme and a legendary dancer, John Bubbles, and it was an extraordinary experience. I got to sing. Mel Torme wrote a song for the show, and he said he played it for us on the set, and he said if anybody wants to sing in, join in, go ahead. It's real simple, and it was about Main Street, USA, and so my natural thing is to go to harmony, and this other girl was the same thing, So he said, "Who's singing? Who's doing the singing?" And I said, "Raise my hand." The girl raised her hand. He said, "Would you like to record the song with me?" And he took us to his home in the valley, San Fernando Valley, and he had a recording studio, and we got to sing with Mel Torme for that show. And when I got to his home, uh, he's I was I was pleasantly surprised to find out he was a Western gun enthusiast. He
Wow.
had he had rifles and six guns and things from the wild west. He had a solid gold 45. Just
Nice.
like I was drooling because I was a little cowboy from Idaho. I did a lot of horseback riding.
Yeah, that's
Anyway, that was
really
a great experience.
that is so cool. That is
Yeah.
so cool.
If I could rewind time a little bit, who would you say was your biggest influence to get you into dancing and choreography? I mean, because when I was a kid, I've always grew up on like White Christmas with Bob Hope, and I've always enjoyed his films. Now, did you similarly
Yeah.
have a favorite performer that you wanted
Well,
to
of
kind of
course,
follow the footsteps?
Gene Kelly.
Gene Kelly, okay.
Gene Kelly was my guy. I wanted to do what he was doing. And it's funny you mentioned White Christmas.
Hmm.
At the end of White Christmas, the very last scene, there's a little ballet dancer in the front of all their group. Her name was Randy Rayburn, and she was a star dancer at the dancing school where I trained in LA. And that school was, by the way, was Nico Cherise School of Dance. Nico was for many years Sid Cherise, and what was really cool is that I mean I stayed with Nico Cherise and his family when I wasn't in Idaho, and but I made great friends with Nico's son that he had with Sid, and so I got to spend uh, a lot of time with Nick and Sid Charisse and Tony Martin up in his Beverly Hills home, and then a lot of the time, of course, down in West Hollywood, Nico. Nico was my ballet master and a great mentor for me.
It's amazing.
That's awesome. Now, what did
But it
you like
was
better? Did you like
definitely Gene
dancing?
Kelly.
Oh, sorry. Did you like
Hmm?
dancing or did you
What?
like choreographing?
Oh, I love every minute of everything. I mean,
So
it
if you had to
seems to
pick
be a
one,
natural. Hmm?
if you had to pick one, which one would it
Well,
be?
oh no, I can't. It's like I say, I love the business. I love creating. I love doing this, and I love every second of everything I've ever done, whether it's big or small. And
That's
it's
awesome.
like for uh, for me, it was a natural evolution to go from dancing to like a dance captain to assistant choreographer to become a choreographer to becoming a choreographer is one step away from directing. And it's been like a natural evolutionary thing. It's it's not the same for everybody, but it worked for me, and it's been that. And so that's why I've done all these things. And I've produced and I directed and choreographed and sang and danced and acted and
You just liked
all
it
this stuff.
So
all of
now
it.
Every
yep, sorry. So now the
every
next
second of it.
evolution of your process is you actually became an author now, writing your own book.
Yes, yes. My book is out. I mean, I'll tell you a little bit of story. 7.5 years ago, I was down in Los Angeles at the Professional Dancers Association event at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, and it was every year, and usually it was hosted by Dick Van Dyke and Mary and oh come on, ooh, anyway, she just passed. So it and the show was to honor 3 or 4 gypsies for their body of work. And this particular time I was there, they were honoring my good friend, Tony Basil, who's a big time choreographer down in LA, and 3 choreographers that I have worked with. and they were honored for their body of work. And we met in the lounge afterwards, and my dancer friends that I had hired for years and years um, started hounding me to write my story. And so after that, it was like 2 years after that, I agreed to write it. And I at first wrote it, I said this will be something. It's because it'll be good for my grandchildren to read something about me. And but it turned out as I started to write it, it turned out I realized what a passion I have for helping the next one in line and the next young person that wants a career in this business. And because I've been there and I've done it, and I've been with so many big productions, but I could tell them what it took for me to do it and what kind of attitude they have to have, you know. And so I started writing it, and it's just now. It was released actually December 20th, and it was sent to Amazon. So it's on Amazon. People can definitely, if you go on Amazon and just type in "Can't Stop Dancing," it'll pop up, and you can get the book that way. But I have a link. I'll send you the link anyway.
Right, and
And
I'll post it in the description for everybody else watching, so that way you guys can go get his book.
very cool. Very cool. And it's photos, like the cover of the book is a photo of me dancing in one of the shows here in Vancouver. And on the back, anyway, all the way through the book, I decided to write it where I would tell something and then have photographs relating to what I'm talking about, and then go on to the next one. A lot of the books I've seen, their story is fully in the front and fully in the back, and all the photographs are at the center of the book. Well, I didn't want that, so I've done everything chronologically throughout the years. So you see the entire growth from 8 years old all the way through to now. And and I'm very proud of the book. I think it definitely will inspire uh, not only dancers, but anybody who has a dream and who have their special way they want to go. And just because it doesn't matter whether you're in show business or anything else, I think it's like what you are doing too with your podcast and everything. It didn't just happen because something fluked. You went after it,
Right,
and then you never ever gave up. And I never ever gave up, no matter what may have happened.
right,
So that's the important thing. Is just to go after it, never give up, and you'll never work a day in your life. You'll never work it. It'll never be a chore.
right. Right, definitely. It's definitely cool, and I'm just inspired listening to you talk right now, so I could just imagine how good your book is.
Well, well, it's fun. There's some good stories in there. There's a good story about Frank Sinatra, which I
Right,
won't tell you, but it
and
shows both sides of Frank.
oh, really? So that's in the book too? Like, you can read that right in the book?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's awesome.
I was up. I didn't. At one point, I said, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't tell this part of the story," but it's what happened. It's real.
Right.
Yeah.
It's real.
Oh, I'm definitely buying it now.
I
Frank
was gonna say,
Sinatra.
Alex, run out
Yeah,
and get that book because I know you love Frank Sinatra, so
Oh, I love him, man. I absolutely love him. I wish I was still in that time. I was born in that time period. Like in dress,
right.
the way he dressed. Snappy dresser, great singer.
Hmm.
Definitely. Definitely. And then you get to work on newer sets too, like you worked in Descendants. How was it working in the newer sets like Descendants?
Oh, I'll tell you, Kenny Ortega, he's a big deal in show business now, and started with the high school musicals,
Right.
and he actually, if you go way back, you realize that he choreographed Dirty Dancing. So that was like the first time he's made his mark, and now he's a big time director producer, and it was a thrill meeting him. We've worked with because I left LA, and then he came into prominence. So I wasn't ever able in my years in LA to work with him. He's a tap dancer. He's a good choreographer. He loves show business. He's a natural born mentor, and he he took a real liking to me, and he kept hugging me and kept saying, "Oh, I got to tell you about the audition. When I first auditioned for him,
Right.
we're at Harvard Dance Center, which is downtown Vancouver. It's the main dance school in Vancouver, and there's about 130 people in this dance studio audition. So what they do on these auditions, you teach the combination to everybody. Then you break everybody up into like groups of 10 or 12. And you watch them one by one, and they watch them one by one, and then weed out the people that they don't want and keep the people that you do want. Well, it came to the time for me to dance, and it was they told us how they wanted us to dance and what the situation was in the movie. This is Descendants one, and they wanted everybody to dance dementedly. So in my mind, I'm saying right down my alley. So I had a thrill, and I danced like crazy man, lunatics, out of a nightmare.
Right.
And he jumps up and comes over to me in front of everybody in the studio, hugs me, and says, "You are the dancer of my dreams." He said, and he turns to the people and said, "If you want to dance in this movie, dance it like he does." That was my introduction to Kenny Ortega.
That's
And
so
from that
cool.
moment on, he had me do in 2 different movies, and then Julie, the TV series Julie and the Phantoms, and then also introduced me to Mandy Moore. So then I did several episodes of Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, and Paul Becker brought me to do The Last of Us. Wasn't a dance, but it was a character thing. And then I think the last TV show I did was The Rise of Pink Ladies. We got to work with Jamal Sims, the young choreographer who was brilliant. And it's like, it just, you are in the right place at the right time a lot of the times in your life, right?
Right.
And nobody controls that. It just happens. You're there,
Right.
and then other people help you along your way.
Mhm.
So all those people that ever helped you, all of them, along your way, that opened your door to taught you something about history. It could be your high school teachers, your baseball coach, your football coach, anybody who opens the door and makes the world a little more understandable for you. They're angels, and they have to be honored and thought about
Right.
because they made it better for you.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Who was
And
your
that's what
favorite?
I hope to do
Oh,
for young kids.
right. Who was your favorite studio to work for?
Ooh, all of them. I
All of
had, I'm telling you, my head was so, I don't know. My brother used to call me Pollyanna all my years when I was training and stuff. It's just my attitude has always been positive, and I've never given in to negative and passive thinking. And it's just a natural thing with me. And
right.
so, I mean, I was, even now, when I do a show on television, whatever, I'm not sitting back in the green room. Uh, I'm out watching what the director is doing, and I have just a total interest in how it's made and how it's done. And
Right.
also, I think now it's going to be interesting because there's some people that want to film a documentary on my life,
Oh, that's so cool.
and I'll have an opportunity to stage it the way I want to and have the right amount of cameras, and that'll be a thrill and a half, of course.
Oh
I get
yeah.
to put some more dances to work.
Right. I hope they do because I want to watch it.
Yeah, yeah. I hope they do too. It's just a matter of now just raising the money. We got the people that are involved, the director we want to use, and and of course my friend Susan Skemp is going to be involved in that documentary, of course.
Yeah. That's what I've been working with, right?
Hmm.
She's
Yes.
really cool. I like working with her. She was really cool to get you.
Yeah, she's good. She's a good singer too. She's a great spirit.
Right.
Absolutely great.
Too bad she didn't come on. She could have sung for us.
She would have.
That would have been
It's hard
awesome.
to stop her from. It's hard to stop her from singing. No, I'm
That's
kidding. I'm just kidding.
John, what are you getting us into? We're gonna have to pay for that. I can't pay for that. It's gotta be pro
awesome.
bono.
This is so
Yeah.
cool. Like let's see. You have anything, Alex?
I'm just sitting back and amazed like always. I mean, I'm always the dullard here when it comes to most of these interviews. So I'm just sitting back, just enjoying the content. I'm enjoying these stories. Absolutely amazing. You know,
Right. I think your
and
mic's starting to fade away on us.
is it?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's starting to die. It's starting to get a lot of reverb in your mic.
You try to turn it down. Is that better?
Uh, yeah, you're
Is
good.
that better? Can you hear me now?
Yes. How did you
Yes.
maintain your work and life balance?
Oh, well, actually, there was a time after coming to Canada where I mean, for a dancer or an actor, sometimes it's really hard to get a credit card or to get a loan from the bank to buy a house, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So a friend of mine that I met, he was on the board of directors of Theater Under the Stars. And Theater Under the Stars is one of the only remaining outdoor theaters in Canada. There's one in Winnipeg called Rainbow Stage, but it's an outdoor theater. It's very successful. I did several shows there, and
Mhm.
I became friends with one of the board of directors. His name was Cliff Cox, and he came to me one day and said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" So I said, "Well, what I'm doing, of course." Right? But he had a company. He was a performer and he was a singer, and he also had experience. He also was an engineer. So he started a company selling heavy duty air conditioning and heating equipment for like almost all the buildings in Vancouver. So he was very successful. But he said, "I have a product. I'd like to cut. If you come and try marketing and selling this product for me." And it was a product by Mitsubishi, and it was a split type heating and air conditioning equipment. So I went there and I tried. He said, "Don't worry. If you have to, when you get your jobs, you go in and do your jobs, then come back and sell a little bit more for me." And that went on for literally 25 years while I've been here in Canada. I was able to do my show business stuff at the same time, which was extraordinary gift from him.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's how I bought my house. And we have credit cards and credit and all that rest of that stuff.
Hmm.
And now he's passed away, unfortunately. But so I decided I was going to obviously just keep doing my show business stuff. But
Okay.
he was a big angel in my life for sure.
Right. Right. So
But
now
that
I
was
know
that was
me.
huh?
I'm sorry. So I know me. Like it's hard for me to like balance like this podcast and time with my family. How did you do that?
Well, one thing was good is that my wife, her name is Charlene. Her stage name was Charlene Brandini. She was in show business. She was a singer, a comic actress, and we met when I was brought from Los Angeles up to Canada in 1964. Uh, she was up here. She was doing a show in Montreal, and she was brought back from Montreal to do the show. And the show was West Side Story. So there were several of us dancers, seasoned dancers, that were brought up to do the show. It requires dancing is super difficult, and it's required them to bring us up. But she was hired from here, and so she sang the ballet somewhere. There's a place for us, and also played Rosalia. And so the moment I heard her sing, we all heard her sing in the rehearsal hall. We just went crazy, and I went up to her and I told her that I thought she was sang. She sang real good. Some hillbilly, just we were all blown away. She was so good. Well, we married 6 weeks later.
Oh man.
Wow.
And we been married. We just had our 60th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
Congratulations.
So all
Yes.
the years long, even when we're down in LA, she also worked. She did several tours of West Side Story for the out from theaters and around, and she did a lot of work with Pat Boone down there. And even one time, I brought her onto the Beverly Hillbillies TV series. We danced together on the Beverly Hillbillies TV series. No,
Really?
so we've been able to blend our home life with show business, and and our kids have grown up in with that. It's been, I wouldn't say easy for our kids, because there are a lot of time we weren't there, right? But we have two beautiful children and three gorgeous grandkids. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. So now you get more time with them, right? Like, are you kind of retired, or are you still
absolutely.
fully in it?
Well, no, we sold our place in North Vancouver and went into this house we're living in now with my son and his lady and her daughter. So we combined our take from selling of both our places in Vancouver, and we bought this place here up in the Okanagan, and we have beautiful 106 acres, and we are a place that overlooks a lake, and I've started teaching in Penticton, so it's terrific. So now it's yeah, and my youngest grandchild is living with us. So
Right, right.
it's a
That's
it's
who
a
helped you
treat
set
to
up
have.
for this, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Um, let's see. Let me see. Anybody in the chat wanna ask questions, or there's a few people in here still. Maybe not. You're getting thumbs up, so that's great. Um, let me see. So does anybody use your teaching methods, like what you used to use to direct or choreograph? Does anybody use your teaching methods now in the industry?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've worked for a long time for a girl named Jennifer Bishop who has the Rhythm Room, which is a tap studio. She keeps going back, and I've known her since 2004. She taught for her for all that time. She reminds me. She comes in and she shows me dance combinations, and I go, that's a very cool combination." And she said, "Well, you taught it to me." But I forget that. But she reminds me that a lot of the stuff that she's doing is what I taught her.
That's awesome.
And but she's a great teacher herself, no problem. She's kept me employed for all these years since 2004, and my other student who was not student, but my who danced for me on several different television shows that I choreographed here at the CBC. Her name is Pam Rosa. She owns the Harbor Dance Center, which is that place downtown here. Well, I've taught for her for 38 years now here.
That's so awesome.
And it's like I have such wonderful friends, and
Right.
my colleagues are. And we meet all the time. We meet all the time. We have a thing called a dancers happy hour. And we'll meet at the at different bars and reminisce, and it's a great time.
Right. That's so cool. Are you working on anything now?
Right now, no. I have an agent that's been working for me a lot here, which is DaCosta, and DaCosta, and I've done a lot of work through them. I just sent an audition piece in today for a commercial that's going to be shot in Buenos Aires, Argentina. So it's like, a couple of years ago, I went down to Mexico City, and here's an interesting thing. I At one point I was the entertainment director of a club here in town called Confetti, and Confetti was in Miami and Los Angeles, and it was a trendy nightclub. And my friend, I mentioned Tony Basil, the choreographer in LA. I called her one day, and I needed a main act for the main stage, and so she suggested these guys called the Campbell Lockers, and she had just discovered them. And those are the guys that did locking, and very interesting dance form. And I brought them here to Vancouver, and they played for 2 weeks. They taught me some locking. Now, most times people they learn locking just dancing when they're young. Now I'm not young, but I learned it. I learned a bit of it, and at this audition for this commercial in Mexico City for Crown Royal, and I went in and I danced, and I got the job because I knew how to lock. I had a couple, and it says so. It's like part of my message in the book is that learn as many things as you possibly can to keep you employed. You know, the more things
Right.
you know how to do, the less you're going to be out of work. So this was another perfect example. Is I got this job because I got luck, and I was not a young guy. And my role was older guy with young beauty.
That's awesome, man.
It was great fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you got to travel the world too.
Yeah, yeah, we've I got two wonderful jobs working for the Canadian Armed Forces overseas in 1985 and 87 during the Cold War. And we went to Germany. It was like a Bob Hope touring show, right? And we went to Germany, Israel, Cyprus, and Egypt 2 times. And it was just, I think about those tours every single day. It's profound. It's a profound experience performing for these soldiers, all these peacekeeping soldiers who, and it's always at Christmas time, they want to be home with their families. And
Right.
so when you go there and perform for them, it's a great relief for them. So it's wonderful to do that.
It
And
definitely
I
is.
took the Canadian band Chilliwack, who were just inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it was superb time.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh, Alex said he'll be right back. uh, that's so awesome, man. So you really had a lot of fun doing all this. It sounds like you're so passionate about it.
I am, truly
It's
am. It's I tell people it's what dancing makes me happy, and dancing makes me breathe, and
right.
it always does it. If I feel bad or down or blue about anything, if I dance, I always feel better. It's always good.
That's
Everything comes
awesome.
together.
It keeps you young.
Absolutely, is your spirit. If your
Yes.
spirit is young, you will stay young your entire life.
Right.
You know, when people start to lose their spirit, it's another experience you don't want to go to.
Correct.
No, I've always been positive, and I look my outlook is always that way.
Right. And I've watched YouTube videos of you dancing and stuff like that too. So before you came on, I definitely looked you up really good. So and it was awesome just watching you, even today, still dancing like that. And it's like really cool.
Now, the only
Yeah,
thing I want to know,
it's,
oh,
yeah.
the only thing I want to know now is, are any of your kids or grandkids wanting to go into show business?
Um, well, my son for a while in grade school. He was going to a Catholic school in North Vancouver. He had great promise. He was a good tap dancer, and I went to see him tap dance one day, and his teachers were two nuns. And these two little nuns, I swore, were from the movie Wizard of Oz. Anyway, they pull up their habit and they had these little patent leather tap shoes with ribbons on them.
Oh,
And they taught these kids at the school. It was just stunning. And but no, he's gone into real estate and he's gone into other stuff. And my grandkids, one is working in show business, but not in as an entertainer. She started working when COVID came, and she was part of the medical team.
okay.
And now she's working as a second, and she's working all the time in the business. And my other two kids are not involved in show business at all. But I shouldn't say that. My oldest grandson is his name is Sterling Patterson.
Mhm.
He is one of the in demand, brightest, beautiful drummers I've ever seen. Great performer. Great. He's been in several bands. Right now, he's working with some bands in Ireland with his brand new
Oh,
bride. Yeah, he's doing very well, and so he is in show business. He is. Um,
perfect.
That's awesome.
yeah,
Alex,
and it
you're not allowed to
started.
go.
I'm going to Ireland
Was
now. See
that?
you later. I'm going to
Oh yeah.
Ireland. I'm going to Ireland. Absolutely.
Well, they live in Dublin. So
Dublin? Yep, yep.
his name is Sterling Patterson. So
I'll look them up.
he's- hmm?
I'll have to
Alex
look them
wants to know,
up.
do they need a Viking?
Yeah.
You stop with that already.
They allow Vikings in. It's okay.
That's good. Because normally, we get a little too rowdy. So.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard some Irish people can get a little rowdy too.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's a reason why the Irish are not Viking.
Rowdy.
They definitely got a little too rowdy.
That's true.
That's awesome. Yeah. But like it's really been an honor having you on our show though.
Absolutely.
This has been a
Thank
real
you
honor.
very much for coming on.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
it's my pleasure. And thanks for having me. It's just,
Oh yeah.
it's
Oh,
great.
no problem. Anytime. And if you ever want to come back, we'll have you back. Like you're always
Absolutely.
welcome
Okay.
back on our show.
Yeah, because now I've got to start doing a lot of promotional work and going. I'm going to go to dance schools all over the place and teach a class, and then have a book signing. So it'll be
Oh,
there's a
perfect.
lot of work to do.
Right, right.
So I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to that.
definitely, definitely. And everybody, his book is in the Amazon store, and there will be a link in our description for him. So you definitely go get his book.
Very good.
Alex,
It's
you wanna
called
say
Can't
hi to
Stop
everybody?
Dancing.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you everyone for watching, and we all hope you have a very great night.
And a safe day.
Thank you both of you guys.
Yep.
It was a great fun to do.
Yeah, definitely,
Thank you.
for sure. Good night, everybody.
Ciao.